Welcome to the Writer's Way podcast, where we explore the stories behind the storytellers. Hosted by Jessica Wilkins, today's guest is author Gentry Thomason. In his book, The Metamorphosis of Nick Adams, he revisits Ernest Hemingway's iconic character and explores themes of identity, transformation, and the forces that shape who we become. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Gentry Thomason.
Mr. Gentry, how are you?
It's fine, thank you.
Okay, so, Mr. Thomason, the title of your book, The Metamorphosis of Nick Adams, can you explain your use of the word metamorphosis?
Yes, of course. Webster's New World Dictionary, in one of its definitions, says the word is, quote, a marked or complete change of character, appearance, condition, etc., unquote. So my use of the term implies the changes the character of Nick Adams undergoes from story to story, from his childhood to his adult maturity at age 38.
So that sense of deep internal changes really sets the tone of your book. Now, for this one, Mr. Thomason, for listeners who may not be familiar, who is Nick Adams?
All right, Nick Adams is Ernest Hemingway's first major literary protagonist who grows and develops in some 20 stories and 2 vignettes from childhood to adult maturity. In many ways, Nick mirrors Hemingway's own experiences growing up and also incorporates that author's talent for invention in his character's development. Nick Adams becomes a model for past and current human experiencing in today's world and beyond.
So Nick represents more than just one man's story. What are the essential changes or metamorphoses that take place in Nick's character?
Okay, Nick moves from being a feeler of experiences in the early stories to being a reactor in following stories. He then becomes a perceiver in later stories to becoming a doer in his final stories as an adult male. That is his essential metamorphosis. So he's working from being a feeler to a reactor to a perceiver to a doer.
So it seems like the central to Hemingway's intent of this book. Now, what was Hemingway trying to achieve in his development of Nick Adams?
All right, Hemingway stated in his book Men at War the following, quote, a writer's job is to tell the truth. His standard of fidelity to the truth should be so high that his inventions, out of his experience, should produce a truer account than anything factual can be. For facts can be observed badly, but when a good writer is creating something, he has time and scope to make of it an absolute truth, unquote.
So for facts can be observed badly. Well, that leads us naturally into how you structured your book, Mr. Thomason. Your second chapter is titled Groundwork of Initiation. What happens there?
All right, the stories surveyed in that chapter include Indian Camp, The Doctor and the Doctor's Wife, The End of Something, The 3-Day Blow, The Battler, a vignette, Chapter 6, and a very short story. The stories about Nick Adams' childhood and adolescent years describe his first stage of development. Nick is characterized as a sensitive, often bewildered youth who does not fully comprehend the world he lives in. Hemingway apparently conceived of Nick in this early stage of his education as a feeling subject, a recorder of events both startling and dismaying to his otherwise healthy psyche. Nick's experience in his first phase of life advances to his wounding and hospitalization in World War I Italy and to his return back to the United States. Together, these episodes of his early life comprise the groundwork of his initiation into the world of adult reality.
And that journey itself really deepens the story.
Yes, of course.
Now, your title in Chapter 3, Death of the Spirit. What stories are explored there?
All right. The stories reviewed in that chapter include a vignette, Chapter 7, Soldier's Home, Cat in the Rain, Out of Season, Cross-Country Snow, and Big Two-Hearted River. The world Nick Adams lives in is fraught with endless contradiction. As a young man, his dealings with reality indicate as much about his world as they do about himself. His next phase of development reveals a pervasive spirit of discord, that is, contention and disagreement, with the established order of things. The threat of death, affecting trauma, initiates the sense of contradiction with which he must contend and acts as a catalyst in his reaction to the forces shaping his experience. Religion, hometown community, parental expectations, and marital life rim the psyche of Nick Adams. He finally makes a retreat into nature to seek restoration for his innervated spirit. His metamorphosis in the second stage of growth is a movement away from integration with his world and its realities. Such an effort yields Nick Adams a death-in-life experience in his transformation toward maturity. Chapter 7, another vignette, again places Nick in context of war. This vignette, coming immediately before Soldier's Home, introduces the element of traditional religion in the protagonist's life.
So which brings us to the one of the most powerful concepts of your book. You discuss the concept of nada. What is Nick confronted with here?
All right. Webster's New World Dictionary, 3rd College Edition, defines nada as a Spanish term meaning nothing. Chapter 7 outlines an altering state of consciousness in Nick Adams' protagonist. Earlier, we saw Nick praying with Luz, a female attachment he had, in the Duomo at Padua. Now we see him praying alone for Salta. Following his second occasion of prayer, he commits the seemingly ironic act of sexual intercourse. Superficially, it would appear that the chaos before heteroforce surrounding him is being internalized. But behind these instances of chaotic behavior, the specter of nada adumbrates. Robert Penn Warren has said that, quote, the typical Hemingway hero is the man aware, or in the process of becoming aware, of nada, is the great nada, unquote. From here on, Nick Adams will be a man without the traditional religious persuasion.
Now, your book, with all those nothingness with the word nada, your book doesn't end in despair, Mr. Thomason.
No.
Your next chapter is Way Sideways to Renewal. What renewal takes place?
Okay, the third stage in Nick Adams' metamorphosis is seemingly a step backward. Hemingway's obvious preoccupation with childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood, and his focus on autobiographical experiences from which some of his writing interests arose, perhaps prevented his continuation of Nick's chronological development. Paradoxically, though, Hemingway frequently shifted the narrative point of view to Nick, there implying the protagonist's continued characterological growth. Hemingway's fashioning of scene and character, of predicament and resolution, also suggests Nick's continuing development. The senses of renewal and acquisition of a complex consciousness in Nick discloses Hemingway's energetic mode of writing and, as well, the latent urges projected into his first major character. We encounter Nick Adams in his third phase of development, in the maturing role of perceiver of his ongoing experience. The 7 stories considered here will be regarded as characterological metaphors of Nick's continuing development. All stories share in common the following traits: Nick's integration or attempted integration with his surroundings, and the ritual task now confronting him, overcoming nada within himself and without. Hemingway's metaphysics is foretold in the titles, the works from which the next 7 stories derive: Men Without Women and Winner Take Nothing. The words without and nothing signify the complex dimension in which Nick's renewal will occur, the environment where loss and death are painful realities. Nick Adams reappears on the stage of the reader's awareness with a grim task before him, overcoming nada. The procession of events disclosing this circumstance also reveals Hemingway's gradual and unhallowed deployment of comedy, irony, and satire.
That renewal sets the stage for maturity for Nick. And in the mature Nick Adams, what defines maturity for him?
All right. Hemingway's last 2 stories present Nick Adams at the age of 38, now a writer, a married man, and a father. The trails and roads traveled by Nick have led him to a mature and settled perspective on the adventure that is life. His clear recognition of life's ongoing movement, of its streamlike flow, is disclosed in the picture we gain of him. In his final stage of development, we see Nick Adams as a man of complex dimensions as a doer of thoughts and deeds. Movement and change are still very much a part of his life, but from his mature vantage point, he is able to reach out and bestow affirmative values to those around him. The affirmative values Nick bestows are shown in his treatment of his son, Schatz. The boy had contracted influenza and is confused about the temperature the doctor has taken. Schatz was schooled in France and is confused, thinking a centigrade reading is the same as a Fahrenheit reading. He is fearful he may be dying. Nick is concerned about his son, but soon discovers his confusion about the reading. Nick bestows loving values on Schatz, values of care, respect, responsibility, and knowledge. Earmarks of love as defined by Erich Fromm in his book, The Art of Loving. In the story Fathers and Sons, Nick is presented as a devout and loving man who is mindful of generations in his family that extends from grandfathers to sons. He affirms that he will need to take his son to his father's gravesite, an act of devotion to family. Nick's regard for country, nation, and world is equally affirmed and implicated in those stories.
Now, which brings us to the conclusion. What are your key findings in the conclusion?
Okay. The world and experience characterizing Nick Adams engages him at every possible level: the personal, social, cultural, and religious. His struggles with vicissitudes in these sectors of his experience establish his characterization as prototypic of men living in the modern age. The dawning of a fatal awareness about man and life has been the concern of numerous philosophers and artists for over a century. The realization of a total and eternal blackout at the end of life causes the concern with death to become hypersensitive. Hemingway's obsession with this theme symbolizes at once both his concern with the state of man's contemporary 20th century spirituality and his overabundant concern with life. Quote, "Whoever rightly and understands and celebrates death at the same time magnifies life," unquote. Rilke's observation on this theme is similar to Hemingway's emphasis in the Nick Adams stories. Quote, "The future is really disclosed by finding out what people can sing about," unquote. The things that Hemingway sings about in his Nick Adams stories are the realities of dying and rebirth and the possibilities of a full and authentic life. The characterological development, Metamorphosis of Nick Adams, follows a downward then upward transformation toward maturity. He reaches this goal in the roles of man, husband, father, and author. His spiritual chronology traverses a pattern of vast proportions, both in the experiential moment and in the overall sweep of his development. Somewhere in the synaptic conclaves of his inner spirit, he merges with some of the profounder aspects in every man's spiritual autobiography.
Now, in your afterword, Mr. Thomason, you include 2 phonographs. How do they relate to Nick Adams?
Okay, well, the first one is entitled Reverence for Life, and it goes as follows. If it happened that our hopes and dreams should be a fantasy of our deepest longings, that no future is operable in an eternal heaven, then we might accept the fallback position that reverence for life is our best reliance for making life's meaning sound, sensible, and durable for all our questings in life's time-bound eternity. And the next one is entitled Time-Bound Eternity. Is our time-bound life the only eternity we will ever know? If that is so, then what do you suppose? What I suppose is this to do: to make of life the most you can, to strive to always do your best, to absorb this message as early as you can, and work to make your dreams come true, or at least to aim as high as possible with all the gusto you can muster. And I think that these 2 realities resonate with the entire story of Metamorphosis of Nick Adams. Further, I think that resonate with Hemingway's life experiences and his character Nick Adams as well. Facing and overcoming the reality and prospect of nada is no simple endeavor, one that many will never experience because they take comfort in religious faith and childhood teachings. Writers, thinkers, philosophers, and novelists, and many others, expand beyond puerile sobrieties and encounter darkness in human reality. The warriors of a dawning awareness that challenges probing minds. Facing such truth is a fearsome responsibility.
Now, what research supported your thesis, Mr. Thomason?
Okay, appreciate your asking. My primary source, of course, was the short stories of Ernest Hemingway, which was published in 1966. My major secondary sources were books, periodicals, and essays and collections. To my knowledge, I researched everything then extant on my subject. Among books I reviewed, 35 authors, including, most especially, Ernest Hemingway, Carlos Baker, who is a leading critic on Hemingway's and his stories, Jackson J. Benson, Philip Young, John Killinger, and Robert Penn Warren. I also reviewed 35 periodicals and 19 essays in collection. Among all other secondary sources, included another 25 books, 51 periodicals, and 43 essays in collection. Altogether, I drew upon 208 sources that gave me a wealth of critical intelligence. I enjoyed every minute of that research and felt secure that I had tapped into a veritable goldmine of intelligence and insights to bolster my take on the character and creation of Nick Adams by Ernest Hemingway.
Wow, that's a lot of references that you have collected in there, Mr. Thomason. Mr. Thomason, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us for the Metamorphosis of Nick Adams. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Okay. That was Gentry Thomason, the brilliant author of Metamorphosis of Nick Adams. His work invites us to reflect not only on the literary character, but on our own transformation, quite painful and meaningful. Thank you so much also to our listeners for tuning in. Be sure to check out his book and join us again for another heartfelt conversation here at Writer's Way Podcast. Until next time, stay inspired and keep reading. Bye for now.